right, hey guys, Sam here with you on Monday, October 15th, and we're going to do a little bit of an update here on Bitcoin as we've had this big move here last night. So a couple of things just to note here before we break into what's happening here. So this was one of the alternate accounts, and I was kind of back and forth with some YouTube subscribers and some members as we were trying to come up with a count that worked here. And so the reason I leave this here, and we'll readjust. Obviously, this count is blown. It's just for the education here. So if you look here, this was all set up. So you can see as we came down here and laboring over this, there really was no obvious count. So it just became a process of trying to take an educated guess, as we had no clear count that you could really lean into. It was just trying to make the best with what we had. But it certainly looked like we had the ingredients here for the 3, the 4, and you can see this looks like it's starting down to go into the 5 to complete here, and perhaps that would have teed up into an X, and then we'd have had one last push down. Well, so here, so obviously this count breaks. So so here's my thought. As I've said multiple times, I'm not to the point now where I'm jumping up and down just yet, right? So the ingredients for something significant are here, but this is not the kind of move technically yet that you would hope for to sustain the start of a major trend change, right? It could be here, but we've got to have something more than just this kind of a move here. So you can just guesstimate what you have here. So obviously a lot of shorts just got crushed there, right? So then that's a panic to scramble. Stops are being hit. If it's blown through stops, people are panic buying to get out of any short positions that they're in. And so we get the big move here, blows up all of the counts down here. So, I guess to some extent, this is the dangers why I don't short Bitcoin. I never have, likely never will, right? So that looked very promising. So you had to be, we went through this on Friday, that if you were going to push on the short side, there were counts here, but you had to be disciplined with your stop, right? It's always the danger, particularly with something like Bitcoin, that can be so volatile when you're pressing the short side. And you go into the Asia market prime time, is that you've got some risk there. So hopefully anyone who was short here would have had a stop here, taking out the one that blows up that count, as we kind of went through that on Friday's video. That these prior pivots were all significant. So hopefully nobody got hurt terribly there. And then if you did have a stop, hopefully it was filled. But, so there you go. It's all teed up. Looks like it's on its way. But really, so here I'm on a 45 minutes. This is a good example of, markets starting to go your direction. So if you were short off of that, hopefully people know that's a reasonable time to tighten up your stop. So if you're in, as on Friday's video, I was trying to get you a 3-to-1 with a stop here that would allow for a retracement. So hopefully as the market started to move here, I think this was the idea was that we had a potential 4 going into a 5. So as that market starts to turn, you have the opportunity to reduce the risk as the market is, so as we're getting this move, as the market is starting to follow what appeared to be a move towards this target, that as that's happening, well, you have the opportunity. There's no reason to leave your stop up here. If it's going to start to make that turn, well, that's an opportunity to just reduce your risk, right? So look what it does to the risk reward. Well, let me bring it up here. All right, so now you go from what was, if you were, we were trying to get through, there's 3-to-1, something along those lines. So there's the 3-to-1. The market starts to move that direction. Hopefully you have the opportunity to tighten that up and turn a 3-to-1 into a 6-to-1. That's the thinking there. The opportunity to reduce risk is always something you want to take advantage of if the market cooperates here. So you would have had a loser here, again, assuming stops were filled. Then you have a much smaller loser here as you've reduced the exposure as you went into the trade. So, I can't speak to, again, I don't ever short Bitcoin, right? I'm very long Bitcoin. So I look at this and I go, okay, well, it kind of leaves me a bit cautious about getting overly optimistic about this move for a couple of reasons. One, it leaves a lot of unresolved targets below. Now, so as I was mentioning on Friday, we've had the first step. We had to blow through one of those 65. So let me let me put this back into context here. So let me go to a different time frame here. Okay, so let's recreate this a little bit. So here's the wedge, right, that we've all been watching. Everybody's been watching that. Eventually, we had to break out of it one way or another. So it appears to be, right, so positive news here that we have a break to the upside, which was always kind of the bias, I think the crypto Twitter, the feeling was it was just a matter of time before we broke out of this. Now, there's a couple of encouraging things, and then there are a couple of caution signs here. First is, right, so let's review here. So the very last poll that we had here, let me blow this up here. The very last poll that I kept saying as the market was going down, we've got to get through one of these 65s. Well, we've got through one, right? That's good. So good news there. So that's the first step in potentially a significant trend change. Got to get through the most recent swing, right? So now the advantage that creates for us is that we have the potential here. Now let me open this up. I may not. Let me go to a 4-hour. Let's see if I can do it here so you can see this. Okay, so here okay, good. So good news. We make a break. All right, so we break that first 65. So now we have the opportunity to get an algo, a buy-side algo on our side. So all I'm doing here, I'm grabbing my fib tool. I'm going to the absolute low here, and then I'm going up to my absolute high. All right, so what can we anticipate? Do you see this here? Let's see if you can see it. All right, so after we get this move, right, we get this big, and it really all happens at 4 in the morning, right? So U.S. time. Well, this would be for me, Central Time. So it's happening at 4 in the morning. So we get this big move up here. So let me see if you can see this here. So as we make the retracement, what do? We come right back we come right to the golden zone. Here's the 618. Of course, as is always the case, right? So you can't put if you were long of that, you can't put your stop just under the 618. You've got to be under the 65. So there's a good example. They're tagging the stops. Note here, right? So you've got a pivot here. So obvious place where stops are going to be sitting. The idea being that prior resistance will offer support, but it gets through it just enough to, well, it could have been they were tagging this one. So you look here. So, it's just judgment call, right? But more than likely here, stops are sitting here. So they run the stops on the 618. Again, all I'm doing is going from swing low to the pivot high. We come into the golden zone, and then we have a move out of it. All right, so that's encouraging. So if I pull back here, right, so the expectation would be when you get a move like this, if it's going to come back, you want to see it retest that breakout zone. So you could make a case here that we have come back exactly into the golden zone, and we've had a decent bounce out of that. So this low here is 67.29, and we're sitting here at 6,900, so we're $200 away. So you're looking at it and say, okay, well, that's encouraging for bulls, right? We like that idea, holding the golden zone. So we know that we have the potential here for an algo to be defending here. Now, if this just comes right back down and we go back down into this range, remember the range the market had carved out for itself from all of this support and resistance that we had identified last week, right? So the market draws this, right? We don't draw this. We just recognize it. So we have this clear zone here. So you can make the case here that while we've come down and we've tapped into the golden zone, we've come back here, and so far, this support has held. Now, I'm not ready to jump in and buy there just yet, because we don't have much. We don't have much beyond just this crazy wick here, and then the reaction that's come after it. Right? So this is people scrambling to buy out of their shorts. And then, of course, people that were short sellers here taking profit, people that bought the breakout, if you bought the breakout, you've pretty much given it all back. Right? So the question is, did you stay with it? So it's not ideal, right? But it's at least we have the first ingredient. We have a start. We have a breakout. We have a retest of where the zone it broke from, and so far it's held. All right, well, remember, there's always going to be algos working on both sides of the market. So let me put this back together and show you another observation. So if we look here and say, okay, well, that's encouraging, right? So again, as I've acknowledged many times, I am long a lot of Bitcoin. So I'm glad to see this. But we can't, as technicians, we've got to we can't trade with emotion like, oh, yay, Bitcoin's up. Right? Well, so what have we done? if you look here, remember, so this is something that I've tried to show both in the short-term video as well as other. When you have this break, right, so we go swing low, swing high, swing low, right? Here was the prior resistance. We got almost to the golden zone. Now here we get a break of golden zone, but look how quickly we retrace back to it. So you got to be a little bit suspicious of that. So as is always the case, when you break one, you have to go back to the next dominant pivot. Yeah, right. So now you could look at it and say, okay, well, maybe there was something here, right? So we had prior resistance here. You know, if we pull this over, you know, we're getting a little zone here that that might be significant to the market. I mean, obviously something happened there. So then you look here and I go, okay, well, what else might be there? Right? So this is the next break we've got to get through. If we get through that 65, now we might have something really substantial. If we can get through and hold a 50% retracement. So the idea being, if we're going to get up through this 50, get through this 65, and then come down and do a 50 and then go, now we have the ingredients for a major trend change. This, you know, it's a little bit of news driven. You know, there's panic. There's panic of shorts covering with longs that is driving a part of that. There's not really much wave structure that we can lean into. If it's a false break, we don't have a lot to work with regards to any analysis of a three-wave correction, because we've just essentially just gone straight up and straight down. So it's, you know, here was the other thing that was noteworthy here. So I think if I take it right here on this and then go to our lowest pivot here, if I get that right on there, right? So it's not quite party time. All right, so we've got a zone here, right? So you can make the case, right? So if you're cautiously optimistic, well, one thing we have to recognize is that because we don't make the median line, we get close, but we don't make it. A failure to make the median line sets up the possibility for a move equal to or greater than the move that failed to get there. So it would put us all the way back down where we started this breakout. So we've got to be cautious about that. And certainly look into, we need a little bit more swing development here. So even if I go down to the 30-minute and we really try and open this up, you know, here you can start to get some swing development here. So here's our big push. So maybe you could make the case here that this is going to be a very sharp A, and then we're going to go into an A, B, C, into a B, C. It's boy, there's not a lot to lean into there as a 1-2. Sure, you've got a candidate here for, maybe you can make the case that this is some sort of 1-2. Let me see if I go to the hourly, if we can get something out of that. So could you make this case? Well, let's look at it. So this would have to be some sort of 1-2. There's the impulsive 3. Well, we've come all the way down in the 4, and we've gone all the way to the 6-1-8. So it's right, it doesn't disqualify it. We don't take out the wave 1. We don't disqualify the count, but that's awfully deep for a wave 4. It reduces the probabilities that we get that move up here for the 5 because of the depth of it. So sure, it could happen, right? That's possible. But if you look into this, we just don't have enough structure to it just yet. So I'd be inclined to anticipate that this is some sort of an A wave. So whether it's 1, 2, 3 or some sort of an ABC, we need to see something. We need to get some more swing development. So we need something along these lines, and then to come down here in a C, and then maybe we go for the 5. Right? So that's certainly possible. But this, we need to get some more structure to this. So I'd be inclined to be very cautiously optimistic about a B wave here. Right? So if we get up to that 50, now again, it's not rocket science here. We know there's going to likely be some algo participation here. So we get a swing high to a swing low. We come to the 50. That likely, now again, doesn't mean we can't get through it, but likely we're going to run into some sell pressure as an algo kicks in to sell that. Right? it's just so it's good news, right? It's good news, but it's not the kind of resolution that we would have hoped for to complete the longer term count. So right now you have to be cautiously optimistic. Let me get back here and we'll look at these support levels here. So the fact that we're holding, let me pull this off. I guess we don't need that here. So the fact that we're holding this level here, if this holds the 68.40, if this holds, that would be very encouraging, right? So we'd have to, boy, I still am suspect of it because of the lack of structure here. So even going down to a 15-minute, there's just not much there. So maybe I would really like to see this come up, and if we're going to test that B, I'd like to see it break through some of this and get a new high here, right? That's a hell of a move. So that's from 6,800 to get a new high here, it'd be 8,000, right? So that's leaving a lot on the table, but I just would caution you to just, getting overly optimistic about this. That's not enough to build a trend change on, but it's at least the first ingredient that you would need to see. So the first ingredient being the break of this longer term trend that we had, that longer term trend line here. This count, essentially blows up. So we go back out here and we go to this 4 hour, and we just got to be cautious here about this, because not breaking through this level, the countdown here is just going to be a nightmare, right? So again, there'll be some Elliott academic who can come up with a count here that works here. It's very difficult to. This is all just right at this point. It's just a guess, right? Because coming out of this, this is where the shorter term wave count gets very problematic. Very hard to. It's really a guesstimate as to what's happening in there. Longer term, we can at least lean into this as some sort of a very long, large triangle that now we have the first start of a breakout. But this has to sustain, and we have to get through this retracement, build a base yet again. So maybe this level here, this level that we had acknowledged as prior resistance, maybe this becomes a base that we can build on. But if we come down here and we close back in that range, I think this just becomes just an anomaly, right? It's very hard to build a case around that kind of sharp movement given how quickly it retraced. Now, if we'd gone up here and stayed and made a shallow retracement and then so had something like this come down here and then gone again, now you have something you can lean into. Right now, it's still just a little bit suspect. Because it's news driven. It's a lot of short covering. It's just not enough yet to really say, okay, let's load up. We're not ready for it yet, right? But it's an encouraging sign. So we'll see. So I would be very, very cautious about getting overly aggressive here on the buy side until you give this at least another 24 hours. I would want to see, how do we come in tomorrow? How does this hold? Do we move away from it? Can we get something here that we can build on to give us maybe even just something along these lines? If we're going to get a good 5, can we get a motive in that 5? Right. Again, there's no reason to try and jump on this just yet. If we get a good 5 wave, I know that's impossible to see. Let's get this all out of here. Right. If we get something like this and we complete and we get a 5 here, so it ends up being, we could have this. You could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that on a larger degree here, right? So this sustains. So even if we think about this, that we this could be 1. Then we've had an A, B, C. There's potential here for a 2, and that this is all part of a 3rd. Well, so we can measure that and say, well, how far did it go? Well, so if we take this, if this is our 1 here and this is our 2, well, we got through the high probability zone, right? We can acknowledge that. All right, so given that break, we went, we'll note here, right, again, back to this resistance. So we get through the 200. Here's the 2618. So if this is going to have more, legs, and we're going to continue to go up here, get through the median line, that would be an encouraging sign. Then come back down here and do something like this, go up and get a 5. Now that's encouraging, but we just don't have it yet. The first problem is the depth of the retracement is a bit problematic. So can we get something like this? Well, if we do, right, that would be very encouraging, and then we have something we can build off of, because then we have a real count with subdivision here that we can we can count on for this trade. So there's the possibility here that we go from this. If we get a 3 up here, let's say we go to the 2618. So this becomes important again because this would potentially be our wave 1, ABC, ABC into a 2. Impulsive 3 wave into a 4, we hold the 38, we go up and we tag the median line. Now you got something you can really lean into. Now you've got structure. So with all the ingredients we look for. So if that were going to complete, we'd pull from the low of our range. If we got up here to the 50, then you're looking for the buy right in here. If we get that, right, so here's our buy zone. Right, coming back down. So we'd be looking for something along these lines to put us in here. That's the big buy. Right, we're just not there yet. Just so be cautious about overloading here. Right, it's encouraging, but not yet time to back the truck up. All right, so we'll see. We got to watch how this develops. This will be very interesting if this holds. If we can come out of this with strength, that would be a very positive sign. If we just come back into the range, this is just an anomaly. Just news-driven, people freaking out about the tether. It's a start. It's a start. All right, okay, with that, I'll wrap it there, guys, and we'll be back to update here as the market allows. Right? If we have something we can really lean into here, we'll be the first to report and make some videos on it and see where the opportunities are for the next entry on the long side. All right, guys, that'll wrap it for today.